Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. Today, we are embracing the madness within. We're talking about a race that's found in the 5e supplement book, the Tome of Heroes, a wonderful book by Kobold Press that was printed to add things like races, subclasses, spells and feats, and other mechanical things to our favorite tabletop game. And today we're talking about a race known as the Derro. The Derro are, well, they're something else for sure. A small race of humanoids that live deep under the earth, maybe even deeper than the Drow and the Duergar. They are a race that embraced the madness of the great old ones in the far realms a long time ago, and their entire society is built around this insanity. We'll get into the details of how a player character could play as a Derro in just a moment. But before we do, I'd like to let you know, Relax Fantasy Review has memberships. For just $1 a month, you can support me here on YouTube and get a couple benefits. First, you get a little badge next to your name in the comments, letting folks know that you're a supporter. But also you get early access to my videos. I upload videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I upload them a day early for members only. If that interests you, you can click the join button just below the video down there. I'd love to see you in the comments with your member badge. The join button is right next to the subscribe button. And if you don't want to join, that's totally fine. Just liking the video, subscribing to the channel, heck, just watching the video at all, just being right here with me is a wonderful way to support me. So thank you so much for watching my content here on YouTube. So the madness of the Derro. Let's talk first. The Tome of Heroes uses standardized ability scores, and the Derro begin with a +2 to their dexterity. Yes, they are fast little mad creatures, and dexterity is arguably the best stat in D&D, so I give a +2 to it, a 10 out of 10. Now, they are a small race. They do fit into the small stature of creatures, which does limit them somewhat, but also give them some buffs. I say that being a small-sized race is just slightly inferior to a medium. I give that 9 out of 10. They also have a 30-foot movement speed. Nice for a small race. You don't see that super often in the older books of D&D. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for that. Nothing to complain about. They also have superior dark vision. Yes, they can see 120 feet in the darkness. And dark vision is one of those things that's good to have at any point, but having 120 feet of it provides specific tactical advantages, even against other dark vision users. So I give this high 10 out of 10 marks. You can't get much better than this. Now, they do have a feature called Eldritch Resistance, which gives them advantage on their Constitution saving throws, but only against magic and spells. So, you know, that's nice. That's a nice little buff. And advantage on con saves is just good anyway, especially if you're a caster and you need to keep your concentration protected. It's a shame it's just spells and not physical things, but I'm still giving it an 8 out of 10. I think it's a good feature. Then they have one of the worst features in D&D, which I tend to hand-wave in my games, sunlight sensitivity. Yes, they, when in direct sunlight, have disadvantage on perception checks and attack rolls. The worst debuff that you can really get in this game, unfortunately, and I think that it is something that you should talk to your DM if you want to play these guys to see how firmly they're going to reinforce this. Does wearing sunglasses or a hood or carrying an umbrella help? I don't know. I like to work these kind of creative solutions into the games, or just ignore it altogether. But I'm giving the feature a 1 out of 10 because it doesn't get much worse than that. As far as their languages go, they naturally speak Dwarvish, and then they can choose between common or undercommon. A decent thematic set of languages here. I never am a big fan of when common isn't just kind of assumed when it's an option, because if you choose Dwarvish and undercommon, and then you go to the surface, you're going to have a tough time in regular society, unless you find dwarves. So, you know, still being duolingual? Bilingual is a good thing, and I give that an 8 out of 10. Then you have 3 distinct sub-races amongst the Derro. The first ones are the Far Touched. They get a +1 to their charisma. the other best stat in D&D, arguably. So +1 to that, I give an 8 out of 10. Then they have the Insanity trait, which I guess all Derro kind of have, but these ones are especially insane. And this trait gives them advantage against charm and fear effects, because it's hard to be charmed and afraid when you're completely bonkers. These are great advantages to have, tactically speaking, and I give this a 9 out of 10. And then they have something called Mad Fervor, which is effectively an innate spell casting. They get Vicious Mockery straight away as a cantrip, which is a nice cantrip to have. Then they get the spells Enthrall and Fear when they reach the appropriate levels for those spell slots. And they can cast those spells once per long rest using their charisma. They are specifically charisma spells. Obviously, this means that if you are playing a wisdom or intelligence-based caster, these spells won't be as strong, but charisma is the most common casting stat in D&D, so I still think this is worth a 9 out of 10. I mean, heck, Fear's a 3rd level spell, so really we shouldn't be complaining. So overall, the far-touched Derro are the more kind of psychic, insane, and yet somehow charismatic ones. It's interesting. You also have another version of the Derro, the mutated Derro. They get a +1 to their strength, a little more of a specific skill, not the most commonly used one, but still good in certain situations and with certain builds. I say that's a 6 out of 10. They also get proficiency in the athletics skill with their athletic training feature, as well as 2 martial weapons. Now this is nice because casters who wouldn't normally get martial weapons, and they're getting a little buff to their strength as well as an athletics proficiency, it just kind of leans in to that more physical version of the Derro. Not a bad thing at all. I mean, obviously, if you're a fighter or a barbarian, you're probably going to have this anyway, but for everybody else, it's pretty good, and I say it's worth 9 out of 10. And then you also have otherworldly influence, and this is a physical mutation that affects your body. You can pick one of 3. You can either have a tentacle, and your limbs aren't tentacles, you still have your arms and legs. You have a 3rd limb, which is a tentacle that comes out of your body. It can't wield weapons or cast spells, but it can make unarmed strikes, 1d4 unarmed strikes plus your strength modifier, and do simple things like lift objects, open doors, what have you. You can also choose mutated blood. Once per short rest, if a creature attacks you, you can spray your blood on them if they hit you, doing damage to them against a saving throw. And it's only once per short rest, but it's still a decent little effect that you can use as a kind of retaliation attack. Or you can just take extra AC. You can get kind of like an armored skin, which gives you a +1 to your AC just flat. All in all, any of these is okay. I'd probably choose the extra AC myself, but they're all thematic, and you can choose which one you like when you build your Derro, and I think this is worth a 10 out of 10, honestly. All of them are good, and, pick your favorite. So yeah, mutated ones definitely lean more into body horror than to psychic horror. And then, oddly enough, there are actually uncorrupted Derro, ones who either didn't give in to the madness or somehow found their way out of it. They gain a +1 to their wisdom, the second most common casting stat, and a good one to have. A +1 I give a 6 out of 10. They also get an extra language, so that makes them trilingual, and that is a very good thing to be in D&D, just from your race. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for that. And then they get Psychic Barrier. This gives them resistance to psychic damage, which is nice to have damage resistance built in, and advantage against madness effects. It specifically talks about the spell Contact Other Plane, because if you fail a saving throw against that, you have madness, and so you get advantage on that save, and any other saves which would put madness in your brain. This is a bit of a niche thing, like it's only going to come up, maybe once or twice in a campaign, but still, resisting psychic damage is good, so I give this whole feature a 9 out of 10. And then finally, they have the Studied Insight feature. They get Insight as a skill proficiency, which is good, and then a cool little thing, where if they study a creature for 1 minute before going into combat with that creature, they get advantage on their initiative rolls. which is kind of nice. It makes it good to scout out a potential combat before you go into it. And yeah, having advantage on initiative is just solid. The insight is solid. So I give this also a 9 out of 10. Overall, the three different variants of the Derro, the far-touched, mutated, and uncorrupted, all get an 8 out of 10 from me. They're very different in the way that they're built, leaning into psychic madness, leaning into body horror, or just this purified version of the little mad people. And I think that overall, the Derro make for a really interesting story. Regardless of which one you are, I think that there's a lot to play with here. The folks who wrote this book from Kobold Press definitely were inspired to create the deep madness that's set within this race and tell a fun story. I think that if you're into storytelling and you're looking for a little spin on the dark elves, dark gnomes, and dark dwarves, these guys could make a fascinating little detour. And they don't break the game at all. You could easily pick them up, put them into a regular D&D game, and you'd be just fine. I recommend talking to your dungeon master about giving these guys a try if it interests you. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below. Have a look for the join button down there, as well as a link that I'll leave in the comments or in the description for the Tome of Heroes. It's a third-party book written by Kobold Press, and I highly recommend you check it out for yourself. Have a good one, my friends.